estate doing?
Slowed up.
Has it?
Yeah, slowed up. I just sent an email to my breakfast friend this morning and said, what, can you figure out what's going on? I mean,
Yeah.
rates are starting to come back down, but it's just like it's shut down again.
Well, it always happens close to Christmas, but we're not there yet.
Well, and you see it happen this time of year regardless. I mean, you see a slowdown. But in the last 10 years, I've never seen it. And it's, of course, since 2006, we've always had, in our area, I think 2006 about where it hit. But like last year, my gosh, I was busy all the way through winter and well into spring. So it was well into summer. And just about the end of June, it seemed like it just kind of slowed up. And I monitor all my websites because I've got, my websites are tied in. I've got one of mine, my own website, and then I've got 43 websites that are tied into the MLS. And I monitor about 11 of them. And my hits are way off on all my websites. And,
Is everybody else's?
of course, it was always, well, Bozeman is just gangbusters and gangbusters. Well, Bozeman's not gangbusters, and a lot of the, from what I understand, and some of the contractors that I've talked with, they've pulled back. They're not putting as many holes in the ground this fall as they had planned on, because it seems to be kind of pulling back a little bit.
I'm surprised.
So I don't know what's driving it. I sent a guy that I do a lot of work for with broker evaluations. I said, well, what are you seeing? Here's what I'm seeing. Because I monitor everything from Three Forks down to Ennis, and from Three Forks up to East Helena, and Three Forks over to Whitehall, Three Forks back to Manhattan. I don't get into Bozeman market. That's a cat fight there. But I monitor every morning and pull up the hot sheet. I can tell what came on the market, what's been reduced in prices, what's sold, all those kind of details. And usually you're running, 35 to 45 listings a day that you have to see something going on. And in the last 3 weeks, it's just dropped just drastically. We're somewhere between 5 and 10. That's all I'm seeing now. And I've talked to some of the other realtors who are saying the same thing, just can't put your finger on what it is. Could be the elections. Maybe a way to get through and see what everybody's concerned about, the national elections and what's going to happen there. But I don't know if you're like this. I've never seen it this way. So it's interesting. Whenever you think that you have this whole business figured out, is when it comes back and bites you.
Sure.
I've never, doing it for 30 years, I've never had it figured out. Probably never will.
I think that's life. As soon as you think you've got it figured out, it throws you for a loop.
Never fails.
Never fails.
My mom, after my dad died, my mom was really bad. I had Alzheimer's, and I had her in a nursing home. And they had a lovely home at Gruber Estates up by home there. And I sold that house, and thank God I did, because right after that is when the market fell. And so I got out from under it at the perfect time. You never know.
Yeah, and it's odd. Another thing that I see is all of the foreclosure people in the foreclosure business. There's separate people that are in the foreclosure business, and they've had their own set of people working for the last 6 or 8 years. And I've always advocated, especially in the Three Forks there, is that we've got shadow inventory there of homes that are not quite there but are close or whatever. Man, I've seen a lot of the foreclosure companies coming out looking for new agents and looking for agents. So I'm kind of sweating blood to, gosh, I hope we're not going to see another go around with foreclosures and that kind of thing, because that really hurts too.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
That affects a whole neighborhood in so many ways.
And I don't do any foreclosure work, and I hate to, yeah, unless it's with a local bank or something like that that are trying to work something out. But you get into these big companies, and most of them are just, they don't actually own, they're just a service company for the bigger banks. And you can't sit down across from a table and talk to them like you can, you know, a local bank and try to work something out. It's just, it's our way or the highway. You know, so we just have to wait and negotiate, you know.
That makes it hard
It does.
and sad. I mean,
And sad. I mean, these are friends that are happy, these are good people
yeah.
that have never had a problem in their life, and now all of a sudden, and we got hit particularly hard in Three Forks because of the floodplain issue. And what happened with the floodplain issue?
And what did happen?
There was a law passed in 2012 called the Biggerstaff Water Law, Biggerstaff Waters, and it was dealt with. They were trying to make the easiest explanation was that flood insurance, they were trying to make it pay for themselves. They've had so many claims off of hurricanes down in
Yes.
Louisiana and one up in New York, the hurricane that came through there. They paid out all this money. Well, they weren't raising enough money through their insurance to make the claims. So they changed the law, and when they changed the law, it went into effect in October 1st of 2013. And we had, of course, Three Forks is right on the floodplain down there, and all the houses are in the floodplain. And floodplain insurance went from roughly about the average home down there, about $400 a year for floodplain insurance to about $1,600 a year.
Oh, man.
Gosh.
And when you look at that and base it out, you end up in a situation where a buyer is, that's an additional $175 a month that they've got to make payments, you know, to qualify and all of this. And when that happened, it really hurt us, and just, and all those older homes that are built in the floodplain down there. And so what's happened now is they went back and revisited in 2014, and they have rewritten the law so that it took effect the 1st of October this year. And they're going to they were supposed to base this all in over a 5-year period, and they didn't. They did it all at one time. But they're bringing this in over a 5-year period, and then they're going to allow private insurance to write floodplain insurance. Lloyd's of London is writing a lot of it. So it's not quite as expensive. We know they're back down in the $500 area per year, but it's going to gradually creep up on us again in the floodplain.
Has the town of Three Forks ever flooded?
Yeah, in '48 they had a pretty bad flood. There was an inch and a half over Main Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, pretty bad flood.
Well, I know they're on the east side. I've seen that flood out there, and then out towards Old Town, all that out there, but
Yeah, once they put a lot of the dikes and all of that in around, and once they did the interstate, you got a confluence, you got all 3 rivers flowing right into that area. So you're gonna catch it from all 3 rivers, whatever happens, so. But, you know, it's a real flood where you've seen sustainable damage and things of that nature. All the old timers tell me, I've not been around long enough, that's 48 was the last time that it flooded. But
Just a little kid, then I remember the water going over the highway with the old
Is that
overpass
right?
there.
Yeah.
Actually, it was
the old
49.
overpass
Yeah,
coming in.
I thought it was 49, maybe it was 48.
Could be 49. All the old timers, most of them are gone, but I thought it was kind of a big, it's not a joke, but it was a
No.
joke to me.
Right.
I mean, you know, come on, folks, this place has never flooded. Why do we're just paying for everything down in Louisiana. What's the deal?
Oh, it's interesting that they didn't remove Three Forks. existing town of Three Forks from the amended.
Well, we had an exemption at one point, but that went by the wayside. We had a state exemption at one point, but that went by the wayside in 2009 when they did the map revisions. They were doing the map revisions and the new map revisions.
Because if you look at our floodplain map, there's a very specific square cut out for the city of Townsend.
See, all the towns in the floodplain, but after the railroad and stuff was built up higher than the,
But it's
Just
exactly the
it's
town of
okay.
Townsend.
Of course, everything was built in it.
So you have no,
Not within the city limits.
that's unbelievable.
No, and it's exactly the boundaries of the city of Townsend that are removed from.
They did that to, I Bob Bobslat went in when they was building all them HUD houses and stuff.
And they did it on
Wiped it
the,
out so they could do what they,
Geez, I'm gonna have to look into that.
well, don't turn it into the negative.
Well, I don't want to turn it into a
No,
negative. If they can do it up there, how come we can't do it here?
And it's, even on the 2012 remapping,
Huh.
they did the same thing.
Well, I was
They
gonna
did
say,
maps.
you know, they tried to avoid this one time back in 1905 when they moved Three Forks from Old Town and put it where it's at now.
it's,
Because they moved the whole town at
all
one
the
time.
old pictures show the water, with the old school and all that was all underwater. Especially in the winter, most of it, I think, was winter.
I think most of the time it is winter because of the ice.
But that in the spring of '49, that was just, there was a lot of water that year.
I wonder why you guys not here in Townsend have done that with the floodplain issues, so it's just, they just flat moved it out.
Yeah,
There's no community panel for it or anything,
Well, there's a community panel, but it shows everything around the city of Townsend.
but nothing mapped for the city of Townsend.
You know, when they did all that, Aaron talks to the bunkhouse bar and where the fire hall is, that was built there. So they come through, all this other, it's way higher than that is floodplain. And there's this little area blocked out right there. It doesn't make sense at all, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, they made some graces, I suppose, for us.
There's questions as to their new panels that they've done, because a lot of them are being shot through satellite, and they're not doing it on the ground about
Elevation.
elevation mapping on them. They're shooting them with satellites, so when you get into that, you know, how accurate are they? So,
Yeah, that ground there in Tossin, they got a floodplain. The water would be going over the top of that bridge.
Hey, Susan.
Hello, how are you? Good, I hate to be late, I apologize.
No problem, we were having a nice chat.
Oh, good.
we solve a lot of other problems.
That's good.
Right.
All properly noticed, of course. Right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start with telling me what the issue is. Nicole said it had something to do with subdivision lots and tax status. That's pretty much what I know.
All right. Do you guys want to start since you're the most
Yes.
knowledgeable?
So basically, this all came to fruition when we have had several, as in 3 that I can think of off the top of my head, folks come to the county requesting repayment of, or a refund, I'm sorry, of their taxes based on the fact that they did not build upon their subdivision lots.
Okay, so I have questions to ask.
Yes.
So from a standpoint of, are these, okay, so they're being taxed as residential?
As subdivision.
Right, right?
Even with it, but they have no structures in place.
Right, so did the owners appeal the tax status?
It's what we believe. I'm Ron Elliott with the
Hi, Ron.
planning board. Hi. I was approached by the commissioners the planning board was approached by the commissioners to weigh in on this situation, and what it involves is the Heidecker case
Mm-hmm.
in 2013. And we've had some correspondence with Dan White. I've had some correspondence with him as trying to gather up the information of what's going on as to, you know, which of these are going to be the lots that we're going to be these people are gonna have to look at. Planning board has nothing to do with it. So basically, what he had told us, or the information that he had provided us, was that if they appealed this tax in 2000, it was redone in 2008, and reevaluated or reclassified, and if they appealed that in 2009 as Class 3 rather than Class 4, that according to the Heidecker case, there would be a refund, a possible refund. And that's what the commissioners came to us about and asked if we would research this and weigh in on it. Well, I did a lot of research on the thing, and I sent them a letter, and I'm not an attorney. I mean, that's why you got involved, because we just said, you know, from what we can gather, and we can provide you with a copy of that letter from Dan White, or an email from Dan White. We had a couple of different exchanges. And he's heading up this whole thing, Susan, for the state on this thing. So I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's good, that's why I'm happy to. So did anybody appeal their status?
Through the tax appeal board?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so then there's nothing to talk about till somebody does an appeal. The property owners have the ability to go through the Department of Administration and do an informal administrative hearing on that tax status. And they can do it within 30 days of any assessment.
I thought that Morning Sky had appealed in 2009. Did you check all
To
of
the
them?
tax appeal board?
To the, appealed their taxes, I think.
But I don't know that it was through the county tax appeal board.
Well, so if they appeal, they have to appeal, they has to go to the county tax appeal board. And the county tax appeal board has to rule by the end of the year, and if they don't rule by the end of the year, then the status was supposed to be changed automatically. So let's assume they were at residential in 2009, and they filed the appeal for the determination saying we should be ag. And if they should have filed it to the county tax appeal board, the county tax appeal board should have heard it and determined. If they never made a decision, then by the end of the year of 2009, it would have gone, the taxpayer would have gotten it changed, and it would have gone into DOR in January of 2010. DOR would have had 30 days to appeal if they wanted to. So.
And that would have stopped there until the second go around. Now we're coming into another.
For another assessment, it starts, that time period starts all over again. Actually, it happens every.
5 years, is it?
Well, it's every 5 years, but you can do it by June 1st of a year that there's an assessment. So you could, there's no.
So they could come back and appeal it in 2010 or 2011?
They could, let's take it to, they could appeal it in May of 2015. And they filed appeal with the county tax appeal board saying, we shouldn't be taxed as residential, we should be taxed as ag. And here are the reasons why, and there's specific requirements that they have to meet in order to be determined to be ag. And that's up to the tax appeal board, right? They look at those requirements. So the first thing when the tax appeal board gets one of those, they have to determine, is it a valid appeal time-wise, right? And if they determine it's a valid appeal time-wise, then the tax appeal board holds a hearing. The landowner comes in, Department of Revenue can come in, and they present evidence. Your county tax appeal board makes a decision. Yes, it's residential, or it should be agriculture. Within 30 days of that decision, either the Department of Revenue or the landowner has the ability then to appeal that to the state tax appeal board. And the state tax appeal board reviews the record and holds another hearing, which more information can be presented. Then they make a decision. And if you don't, again, we still have the same Department of Revenue, and we have the landowner. Whoever is unhappy then can appeal that to the district court. And then in Heidecker, Department of Revenue, so State Department of Revenue and Heidecker said, yeah, that is absolutely, it's still ag, here's the reasons why, and we can kind of talk about those reasons. Here's why Heidecker is agriculture. The district court affirmed the state tax appeal board, went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court affirmed the district court. So, I mean, it's a lengthy process. In the meantime, the taxpayer has to pay their taxes. They can pay them under protest, so if they're being taxed as residential and they don't like it, they can pay it under protest while the protest is going on.
Would then the county be, if it had been paid in protest, would they be responsible for going back and looking at this? I mean, are these folks gonna have to go back to 2009 and look to see?
They have to go back to when the protest was filed. So if somebody's been paying them for 4 years under protest and hasn't brought them forward, we would have to go back and actually look at all of the relevant steps and make sure the steps were all followed and make that determination. But I got the impression from Nicole, it hasn't happened yet.
No, there's been no,
I
I don't know.
think SKS did pay theirs under protest one year.
But did they appeal it? I mean, you pay them under protest, but you still have to do the appeal.
None of them did, right?
So if none of them have appealed this, they don't have any leg to stand on requesting this.
Well, you don't get a refund until you've been all the way through the entire process, and there's been appeals here. They've been to the county tax appeal board, and then, I mean, it could stop there. I mean, they could say, oh, county tax appeal board ruled and everybody's happy with it, and it could stop there. And then depending on what the tax appeal board ruled, you look at that increment of time from the appeal to the decision. You don't go back and look back to 2008 or 2009. When they created
What
it.
about,
I mean, that would be a nightmare from the standpoint of the county trying to do that, so.
Yeah.
what about if they just skipped over the county tax appeal board and went straight to the state tax appeal
You
board?
can't do it process-wise. State tax appeal, it's not a valid appeal, and the state tax appeal board wouldn't hear it.
How did Oak Ridge do this?
Well, that's exactly what they seem to have done, at least from what BOR has told us. BOR apparently went in and just changed their tax status for their lots without any of this process.
Okay.
And
Right,
then,
and that's normal. That, the
Okay.
first step is normal. That's what they do. Revenue changes. They say, we've reviewed the property, and here's what we determined based on the facts we have, and you are now residential. And they look at the covenants, and they look at the uses, and they look at all of the things that are, right, the criteria. DOR makes that change. That's the first thing that triggers, when that change was made, that's the first thing that triggers a potential to say, no, it shouldn't be residential. So, and Heidecker's a great example. Heidecker's subdivision, he subdivided 200 acres, and he actually put in the roads, but the roads were the same roads that went to his gravel pit on his farm. He continued to farm the entire time. He had subdivision lots. He put in a hydrant on the pond that was the gravel pit. Ultimately, they disconnected the hydrant because there were leeches in the pond, and it kept, every time the fire district would go out and test it, it would clog up the pumps. So they said, we're not doing that anymore, it's too expensive. But I think significant in Heidecker's, he never sold a lot. He never advertised for those lots to be sold. I think those are two really important facts. And then he had covenants that said it's primary residential, but the covenants didn't preclude agricultural uses. It limited horses and dogs, but it didn't preclude agriculture. So he continued to farm or lease out the whole area to be farmed. It still does. He's never sold a lot. Has his house in the subdivision. There's a house directly adjacent that was a separate tract of land that was his uncle's, that he sold that, but separate tract of land wasn't in the subdivision. So Heidecker, and he went along for about 10 years being taxed as ag, and then DOR looked at his, it pops up, it was his year. I mean, it's like winning the lotto, right? It's your year to be reviewed. They review it, and DOR says, no, this is residential. You've got covenants that say it's primary residential. You've been through a subdivision. You've put in roads. You have utilities, which, by the way, he never put in the power yet. So he didn't have the utilities in place. But he immediately, he went through the informal, which you don't have to do. You could skip the informal, but he went through the informal. He went to the county's tax appeal board. County tax appeal board said it should be, I think they're the one who said it should be residential, and then he appealed, paid his taxes under protest, appealed to the state tax appeal board. They said, no, it's agricultural. Then DOR appealed that to the district court. District court said, no, it should be agricultural. And then DOR appealed that to the Supreme Court, and they agreed, yes, it's still agricultural, because in the meantime, he amended his covenants to say agricultural productivity is not precluded, so it was clear under his covenants that he, I mean, you could continue to farm it, you didn't have to sell lots. So, but that record, whatever this, I mean, people need to they have to make this timely appeal. Now, I don't really know if we're in a reassessment process and then they've been reassessed. They were reassessed in 2014 for valuation, that would still trigger it, but they had to do it by June 1st. So, if they
Because
have.
it'll change in 2015.
Well, I mean, they have to do it within the time of the assessment, so are they, if they're, whatever, once they get that notice that says your assessment's gonna change, that's one of the things that marks that trigger. You have 30 days from that, or until June 1st of the year, you get
To
that.
file that official.
And if you don't file it as a taxpayer, you are out of luck until your next lotto rolls around.
Which is down the
Should
road.
be 5 years, but some aren't, I mean, they're not necessarily always absolutely in a 5-year increment.
What we were trying to ascertain was the past 5 years from 2009 through 2013 in June when the ruling came down. Because once the ruling came down,
Yeah, it doesn't matter, they had to have been in the process, they had to file the appeals timely. So, so let's just, I mean, I don't know any of the facts of your lots out there. I mean, I know there are lots out there on the south end of your county, which is like, what I refer to as the Three Forks interchange, right? I know they're out there, but if they were reassessed in 2000, in January or whenever you get that notice of 2014, and they didn't make that appeal time, they can't appeal that, they're no, I mean, they still can, let's make this really clear. They could still file, they could still go through the DOR process, and DOR is probably gonna tell them, well, you didn't do this timely, so we're gonna deny it. They could still appeal to your county tax board, and your county tax board should do the same analysis and look at it, when did it happen, what are the timing requirements? If it was not timely filed, your county tax appeal board has to say, sorry, you didn't file this in a timely manner, we can't hear it. And then that lot stays that way until the next assessment round comes up, and that triggers a review again. But my perception about those lots down there is they are not absolutely the same as Heidecker. Because they offered them for sale, lots have been sold out there, and I think those are, I mean, when it gets to the hearing, those are gonna be really important facts to develop.
yeah.
Because it's really important that Heidecker never offered them for sale and never sold any, and he didn't actually put in, like, he didn't have fire protection, so now he couldn't sell those lots as agriculture because he doesn't have, or as residential lots, because he doesn't have utilities and he doesn't have fire protection. So, I mean, but that's the whole point of
Well, that's
having
what
the
I
appeal
think.
and the facts has to be at a hearing, and that hearing I mean, the first step is your county tax appeal board, so the appeal has to be made, and then the board has to call a hearing, and the evidence has to get presented, and they're gonna have to make a decision on the information that's presented. But, I mean, so for right now, I don't know that you guys have an issue.
Okay,
And so do we have to inform these folks, because we have had 2 written requests and 1 personal request where an attorney came to the commission and asked for a refund? So then we have to inform those people now, this is the process. You are
I
sharing to
refer
go
them
through it.
back to the fact that they need to go back and look at the rules and regulations and laws that govern tax reclassification. You can't give them advice because you don't know the information, but you have to tell them, the county can't offer a refund, they have not been reclassified. And if they want to be reclassified, the first thing I would do is refer them to the Department of Revenue's tax appeals. I went out and pulled it off their website. The original, they have this really great informal process, so it's on, property assessments in the appeals process.
So they could go to DOR first for this informal process,
Right.
that's what you refer to
Yeah,
as
it's
the
a
informal
process,
process.
right.
And then DOR could or may then refer them back to the county tax appeal board and tell them what they need to do
Right.
to come to the county tax appeal board, okay.
But they don't have to do the informal process with DOR.
They don't
They have
have
2
to.
choices. They can file it, either go to DOR for the informal, or they can go to the county tax appeal board. But that's what they need to be told, is by the commission is, well, thank you, but until you've been reclassified, we don't have anything to talk about, because you don't have anything to say to them. They're not been reclassified, so you're not, until you've been through the process and somebody reclassifies you that would entitle you to a refund, there's no refund to be had.
Okay, so what they first need to do then is to become reclassified in order to, and I don't know that any of these lots have been reclassified. I can't speak to that, if they have been reclassified from residential to agricultural, and now they're requesting a refund.
They
So I-
have.
SKS has.
SKS has, okay, and that's Morning Sky.
So they were reclassified as agricultural,
By
Yes.
UR.
okay, and when?
Last year,
2013 tax bills.
yeah,
Okay, so have they asked for a refund for part of 2012 then? Either one of those?
Is
I
SKS
think-
Morning Sky? Or which is SKS?
I think SKS is Morning Sky.
And so that would be Carol Garvey as a member of SKS.
Yeah, because it's made up of, there's more than one owner in that. But what about, you're saying Coulter Run, because Coulter Run, all of those lots have now been sold. They were all auctioned on,
I know that was another subdivision name that was thrown in.
They were reclassified, but they are not requesting a refund as of yet, that I'm aware of.
Well, and if they've been
Yes.
sold, and if they've
Right.
since been sold, and I don't know if it was Heidecker, but there was another one, another tax appeal board that says, once they've been transferred, so if they get agriculture, once they transfer,
they are.
then they
they're residential.
immediately go back in just like any other lot, you know, it takes that time to cycle through, but they'll immediately go back in when they're sold and have a new owner, and it'll get reclassified within the next 18 months, essentially, to
Oh, so
become.
not the 5-year time period?
No, because then once you change owners, it's no longer agriculture,
Okay.
it's presumed to be residential.
so what we have is, a couple of subdivisions, and DOR reclassified them from tract to ag, non-full ag.
Okay,
And we have a couple of attorneys and Rolling Glen and somebody else who've come forward and said, well, DOR told us to come to you for a refund going back 5 years. And that's what we're trying to figure out. Are we obligated, if they didn't follow this process, to refund that?
did they cite you any law? Because I can't find any law that would, I mean, great, would you refund my taxes for the last 20 years?
Well, exactly, you know, that's
Sure, I mean,
the-
I can't find any, did they cite any law? I mean, do you have letters,
What was
do you
that?
have,
MCA from Dan.
it's in 15, but you don't, I mean,
Which one on?
There was something in his email that
Right.
cited a code.
Um,
Well, Susan, dear, my understanding that no matter what, you have to start with the county. Is that what you're saying?
your first step, if you want to be reclassified, is you can go to DOR, but you'd have to go to the county tax appeal board. So, but that doesn't have to do with refunding the money, that has to do with reclassifying. Or if you think you've been overvalued, it's the same process. If you want your value looked at because they come out and they say it's worth more and you say, no, it's not, you can do either the informal process or start with the county tax appeals board. So, but I'm curious on this, because if you have one that
It's in
they
the
were
second paragraph,
reclassified?
MCA.
it's 15720
They were reclassified,
as ag.
right, but they're
Okay.
saying now, we should also have been up to 5 years ago. Therefore, we want a refund for all those previous years.
In 2010, 2011, 2012, through 2013, when the Supreme Court ruling came down, is what, and that kind of,
But
what,
if they were reclassified, then they were paying the lower tax rate, right? At the point they're reclassified.
At
They were-
that point, they want a refund for before that.
no, I think what happened is they were reclassified as, in 2008, 2009, they were reclassified as rural residential.
Okay.
Right, and then in
Oh.
2013, they were reclassified as non-fall ag.
So do we owe them from 2000, what they're saying is that,
They're saying they want the years that they were determined to be, call them residential, they want those refunded? No.
that's the
Even though they
specific
did not
answer you
pay
guys
under
are looking
protest.
for right there.
Yeah. No.
They didn't pay under
They didn't
protest,
on that
and they
one.
didn't.
And they didn't go
submit
through the
to
process,
board
so
or
no.
the informal process. So they can be reclassified, that's just fine,
And they apparently are now,
Right,
okay,
but they
but
don't like their reclassification from 2008.
they don't like that, but they didn't appeal it.
No.
So,
But
So
now
they
that
don't
they've
have a leg
gotten,
to stand on, so they can't go back to.
well, you know, you don't know me well, anybody can sue you anytime, any place
Oh, I
for
know, I
anything. The question is whether you're gonna win or not.
Yeah.
And the reality is that I don't believe they have a good claim to sue you if they didn't go through the process to change their qualification. I mean, they could have come in after it was qualified as residential and appealed it and said, no, it shouldn't be residential, it should be as ag, and gone through that process. And then that determination would have been made at that time. So just because because DOR changed them again, just like DOR does, no, that does not qualify them for a refund for 5 years when they didn't do anything to,
just because now they're seeing that that was a possibility,
right, no.
it's like buying milk today that you
And
realize
we're
is
not
on sale
sure.
tomorrow. And
Right.
You don't get tomorrow's sale price.
Because you bought it today.
Right.
And we're not sure that it would classify as exactly what Heidecker was.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
DOR
it
may
seems like
be,
it's very generous.
DOR may be very generous at this point now with their classifications, more generous than your tax appeal board would have been. We don't know because they didn't enter the process. So, I mean, if you don't enter the process,
You don't win,
you don't get to,
you gotta dance the dance.
you gotta dance the dance.
And you have to have filed your tax appeal by that June 1st deadline, or else it's done for that year.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and they didn't, so, I mean, I think it's very nice for DOR to be handing it off and saying, go talk to the county, because, you know,
Well, they don't wanna, and I can understand, you know, he even makes reference in there, I can't tell you this because that's offering legal advice. Same thing that I'm saying, that I'm not an attorney, I don't know. But, he was really nebulous about everything when I was trying to get this research done for you folks. I mean, it was real nebulous about, well, you know, don't really want.
yeah, I mean, I guess you should make sure they didn't pay under protest. If they paid under protest, that may be a factor you wanna consider, but,
That
Is
should
that
be
something
been
that you can find
that.
out?
That's something I can find out, yep. And I know that, I know SKS did pay some, it was in protest, I can't.
and if they paid under protest, yeah, I know, so the question is, they paid under protest, what were they protesting, and then did they follow through with it? I mean, lots of people write paid under protest, and then you have the 90 days to go follow up with your appeal to the tax appeal board, and people don't, and then the protest is essentially waived. So those are all, I mean, if anybody paid it, you should look. Anybody paid under protest, we need to look and see what happened. But generally, the answer is no. It's exactly what, I mean, it's like that. You buy milk today and it goes on sale next week, and you might have spent the extra money, but that's because you spent the extra money and you didn't follow the process to go back and try and get your money back.
So I guess I have a question too, regarding this. So in one of these situations, SKS specifically, SKS is a corporation. Carol Garvey is a person associated with SKS. Carol Garvey owns 11 lots, I believe, in this development. She is requesting a refund. So my question then, and I realize she still have to go through this process, my question then, is she a second owner? So as you spoke previously to say that it has to be the original owner. So SKS Corporation, as a corporation as a whole, is not requesting a refund, not that I'm aware. But this person who is a member of this corporation is requesting a refund on her 11 lots.
And were they
Can she
deeded
do-
out from the corporation to her individually, or are they still in the corporation?
They're in her name. They're in her own personal name, not corporation name.
Well, so she needs to file with the tax appeal board, and ultimately it's gonna be a decision the tax appeal board has to
Okay.
make. That's,
Okay.
you know,
But so that is a possibility, just like it would be a possibility for anyone
right,
that bought a lot in a subdivision. You're not the original owner, you did purchase it, the intent was for it to be residential
yeah.
property. Okay.
I mean, I can't speak for them, because I don't know what they would decide, but
Right.
it's gonna be a factual determination. I mean, I would think that there's gotta there would be some explanation of why the lots were divided out of the corporation and the
They
it's
got
the
mad at
burden.
each other.
And I will, well, that's possible. And the burden of proof is actually, in favor of DOR. So if DOR says it's residential, then it's up to the taxpayer to overcome that with facts to show that it should be. And they're not talking about subdivision law, agricultural and residential. You're now under the tax rulings to say, here's how we qualify agricultural in your different categories of tax qualifications. So that's what goes back to the tax appeal board. So for you guys, you're off the hook right now.
So for the commission moving forward, and because I assume that they will need to respond to these 3 requests that have come before them, their instruction to these people will be to go to DOR.
Right. Or file an appeal with the,
Or
or
okay, so
file
you
an
can't
appeal
tell
with the
them-
county
okay.
tax appeal
So
board.
go to DOR for, and follow the informal process? I mean, is that
Yeah.
what it's?
It's the informal administrative hearing, or they can see if they can timely file an appeal with the county tax appeal board.
Okay.
Now, you're gonna have to prep your county tax appeal board to be able to understand what they should be looking for to determine if it's gonna be an appropriate appeal or not.
So that would be the next meeting is with the tax appeal board and this same group,
Talk about what they may be looking at.
okay?
So we'll probably want to get the tax appeal board to a meeting, to another working meeting fairly soon. To talk
Yeah.
about this, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so when these people came in to ask for the refund, did they give you their tax records and any information?
Not yet, no, and that's one of the things we started doing is what should be our process, what information we collected, and then we started getting into, you know, all these question marks just kept piling up. And it just didn't make any sense.
Right.
So that's where we're at now, but yeah, they haven't produced anything
Okay.
at this point.
So, yeah, I think the first level is to tell them, look, you have to go through the process. And I can't, and if they really wanna make a request for you to refund them based on a reclassification they didn't have, they should definitely put that in writing and explain why they think they're entitled to it. Cause I can't see any law that would allow you to refund money. I mean, if that were true, why couldn't everybody come back and say, I don't like my value way back when? I overpaid for all these years, you refund my money too. And I will tell you from a personal standpoint, I got reassessed. I live in the city of Bozeman, I got reassessed. I had just had an appraisal in the last 9 months because we remodeled my kitchen, so I knew what my house was worth, and my assessment came in $120,000 more than my house was appraised at to do the loan for so I knew it was way off, right? I submitted it to the department under the informal process and said, it can't be that, because here's my appraisal. And at the first they said to me, well, your appraisal is rejected because it wasn't done within 6 months of the date that we reappraised your house. Well, how would you ever know as a taxpayer when they're gonna reappraise your house? You don't know that, right? You can't just, But I sent them back in the informal process, another letter saying, that makes no sense. Because how would I know when you're looking at my house? You don't tell me, oh, by the way, in the next 6 months so I can go get an appraisal. And so somewhere between the $275,000 that my house is worth and the $356,000 they thought it was, they split the baby and gave me $295,000. No explanation of how they came up with it, but I went, good enough. Hey, I walked off $60,000 off my value for my taxes, so I was at least partially happy. But I would tell you these processes are not clean and neat, and people don't, and they're not linear by any means. The appraisal process isn't linear, but I would tell these guys, I don't know how they can come, I really don't have I can't see any way you would be able to refund people's money for a reclassification that didn't happen because it might have happened if they followed the process. But if they want to come up with some law, I will be happy to look at it and, see, I've been wrong a couple of times. So, But that's what I would tell them.
Okay.
I don't think you can right now. You have advice from your lawyer that you can't right now. It's not, but that they can go do the appraisal, and if they have anything further to present, you'd be happy to consider it. I mean, I never shut off people talking to you, but I don't see where you can do it. Unless, of course, you guys have oil in this county, and in that case, if you got tons of money,
We haven't discovered it yet, though.
We're just looking for it.
trust me, I've been on the other part of the state. No, you don't wanna look for it. It ain't pretty over there. They have money and they have way bigger problems, so.
Yeah. those
Can I keep
not-
this? Can you reprint yours?
Absolutely,
That'd be
absolutely.
great, thank you. All right, anything else? I guess
No,
you should
no.
probably ask for a public comment while you're, so that people can tell you what they think after I've been here, and I'll probably only be fair, and I'd love to know what they have to say, so.
Absolutely. Any public comment or questions? Alan?
Yes, all right. I have a question, I don't know you,
Susan?
Susan.
Yes.
As a citizen, so you went back a few years ago, and you filed for a protest and a reassessment with the local tax board,
Mm-hmm.
but if you never can get a meeting or to get together with the tax board, does that stay there until they make that decision?
If you filed a valid protest, a valid appeal to the tax board, and the tax board does not make a decision by the end of the year, you win.
Okay, because that's actually, because I have a question here, man, that gets back to, because my dad and I, we did file a couple of them. Because there seemed to be at one point in time, some confusion of procedures.
Mhm.
Actually, you kind of laid it out very nicely there. And because we filed, and filed twice, protest plus reassessment,
Mm-hmm.
plus there's a couple other issues, but we're just sticking with the protest and reassessment value.
Mm-hmm.
And neither time,
And then did you follow up with the appeal to the tax board, the county tax board?
that's who we filed with.
Okay.
For.
Can I respond to that real quick, just because I did see your dad's most recent, yours and your dad's most recent protest. And I'm the county tax appeal board secretary.
Awesome.
Oh.
Fairly new at this, I'm learning.
Well,
So I did receive the protest. I talked to the state tax appeal board because I wasn't sure how to process a protest, and she said I don't. The county tax appeal board only processes the appeals. So I've never received an appeal, just a protest. So they are two
Separate
separate
things.
things. So you first do the protest, and then you file the appeal. But the appeal has never been filed. I guess I shouldn't say never.
Are
Not
you
this
going
year
back to the
since
very
I've-
first one?
No, just since the year I've been doing it.
Okay, because when Rhonda was here, just before she quit,
Okay.
okay, the quagmire rules and regulations.
It's a horrible quagmire of rules and regulations.
Because evidently, even our own county doesn't understand the actual procedures. Some do, some don't, some better, some worse. Because that was part of was reassessment,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we protested, we filed with the local, and at that time, we were told they did not have a tax board. And there was a couple of years we were told that they did not have a tax board. They didn't have enough for a quorum, they either didn't have secretaries, or they didn't have something. So, if something is not actually given a formal response, then would it still be sitting at the local tax board?
I can't tell you, because I would have to go back, in order to figure that out, we'd have to go back and pull out all of the paperwork, because I don't know, I can't tell you sitting here whether you filed a protest and an appeal, or you just filed a protest, so I can't
Because at first
answer
it was
this.
confusing, because we weren't appealing, we were first protesting.
Right, you filed a protest
Yeah, yeah.
on your taxes, and then you filed the appeal saying my taxes were wrongly assessed because. So you have to do both parts, and so I don't know what happened in the past, so I'm sorry, I can't help you sort out that quagmire of this.
Don't you have to get something that says that you have to appeal? You're not, like, he's saying that he went to the tax, or put the deal in there, but nobody answered it. Nobody.
I can tell you, I have never seen a law or a regulation that requires the county or the state to tell you that you have 90 days after a protest to file your appeal with the tax board and how. Now, other sets of laws, like in subdivision law, when the county makes a decision, they have to tell everybody, you have X number of days to take an action. I have never seen anything in the tax laws that say you have to. I have to tell you though, I've never looked for it.
Well, I think it did.
So, I can't, I mean, my answer is, I don't think so. I don't think they were obligated to, but I haven't really looked for it. I would have to go back and look.
Because like our county, they were very specific. I mean, you got so many days to get this done. I mean, that was crystal clear. And I think at that point in time though, it got hazy of procedure, all right? And so by asking your county, and this is what they're there for, okay, this is the procedure.
So
Not,
it-
not asking for legal advice.
No, if I were you, I would send them a letter and copy with when you protested and when you did the appeal, and so that they can go back and look.
It never got to the appeal,
Well,
because we still are at the local level.
you get an appeal, you have to file an appeal at the county tax board. That's
But
the,
you're appealing something that hasn't been a decision yet.
you're appealing the taxes you don't think are properly assessed.
Not the ownership of the property.
No, we're talking, that's
Right.
the other part of the issue.
Yeah,
We're just
I
talking
don't
about.
know anything about ownership, I'm not gonna talk about that, but anyway,
Right, no, that's-
but,
this
so
is
if
separate
I were
part
you,
then.
that's what I would do, that will give Nicole the information to go back and look.
So then
and
we
see
should
what
be able
happened.
to go down in the county here and they should be able to pull them up. Since they were submitted to the
You
county.
should have copies, right?
But the county should have that since we submitted
Well,
it.
I would say theoretically, yes, that should be, and you should have copies too, so. But in
Because-
order to help them find what they're looking for, sometimes if you give them the copy of what they're looking for, it
Right,
makes it
but
a
I
lot
mean-
easier.
But
Yeah,
that's what our conception of what we were told, we file with the county, the tax board make, okay, whenever they have their meetings, right, you get together, they have all the other people that have submitted their tax protests or appeals or whatever you wanna call it.
Mhm.
And, there for quite a while, we were told that they didn't have
okay,
a quorum. So, is it our responsibility as a citizen, if they don't have a quorum committee? I mean, in other words, where does the citizen get, the taxpayer get protection here? When to find out more, to protest or appeal their, without going to court?
well, unfortunately, in the end of all of these is the court.
I mean,
That's-
that's the
that's
sad
where-
part right
yeah.
there.
But what I can tell you is we can't resolve your questions today. And if Nicole's only been doing this for a year, she doesn't know what happened before. I sure don't know what happened before. I don't know, so without knowing that, I can't really give you any more answers than I've given you today.
I think one that we did, we filed an appeal.
Why don't you, get the paperwork together, and then what you can do is talk to Doug and show him what you need, and follow the process from there. Because like Susan said, we're kinda off topic, but without having more
Well,
facts.
she was nailing a lot of the issues, I mean, it was,
Right, but for you at this point, instead of arguing the points, what you need to do is bring in the evidence so that we can work through the process.
I mean,
Figure it out.
I mean, yeah, because I'm super
It's
listening to
it's
what you.
Major League Baseball, you know, if you're at 30% in Major League Baseball, you're a superstar. Yeah, so you know, if I'm above 30%, I'm a superstar, but yeah.
Okay, that works.
But that's what I would do, bring it in and let's see what we can do, because everybody here would like to get you an answer. Whether it's the answer you want or not, I can't tell you, but we'd like to at least get you an answer.
But is there like a statute to where, okay, because it's gone a couple of years, that nothing's been filed, does that mean it's all gone?
You know, you can keep asking that question 7,000 different ways, I'm still not gonna answer it, I don't know.
Oh,
Ron, did you have a question? You looked like you had one. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm totally confused, but that's coming in on these meetings, so.
We can help you, Sharon.
You're not all by yourself.
Anyone else? Any other
I just had to
questions?
say to Susan, thank you for coming up and moving the veil from our eyes to see what's what.
You're welcome.
And Susan, I appreciate, my name's Cheryl Campbell. I appreciate you coming down and taking your time. It's eye-opening, it's helpful.
Oh, good, well, I'm glad, I'm
I
glad.
appreciate it.
I'm glad, and you guys gotta finish your construction on that highway, it's just gotta get done.
Just started.
I know,
And there's a meeting tonight on it more.
I'm sure, but that culvert they're putting in is kinda cool.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I saw the first half, and now I've seen the second half. So. All right, well, thank you, I don't know if you have anything else on your agenda, but.
We don't at this point. Any further questions? All right, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right.
Thanks, Susan.
This has been excellent. Oh, I do have one more question.
Sure.
If we draft a letter to send to all these developers, would you give it a read
Yeah.
through for us to make sure we've got the facts? And-
Sure.
Okay.
No
thank
problem.
you.
Yeah.
Nicole, can we work on that together?
Yes,
All right.
definitely.
I don't want to throw it into your lap, and I don't want it in mine either.
You know, I think I will try it, I'll take a stab at it right now while it's fresh in my brain. And then I'll send it to the commission to take a look at it, and then we'll send it to you gentlemen, because I wanna be sure it's captured everything that,
Get all the facts
and
in
then we'll
there.
send it to you.
Sure.
And then we'll send
And
it,
then, you know, I'll ask Ken more questions.
which is A-okay.
Absolutely,
A-okay,
yes.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed with the Department of Revenue, though, that they haven't laid these facts out with people.
Do you think it's for the legal reasons, do you think? I mean,
I
just
think it is.
I do, I think they don't, I mean, because everybody's different. And they really can't be telling people what they think you should or shouldn't do. And frankly, I mean, so I can see them saying, well, you can ask. I mean, I tell people that all the time, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? You get a no? Ask. But don't be surprised if you get a no. And that may be what they said, you just don't really know. I mean,
That's
they
true.
just, and
True.
if I were them, I would not want to speculate. I mean, because they're still trying to deal with Heidecker. I mean, and Heidecker started in 2011. So it's not like, I mean, actually, I think his protest was before that. I went back and, yeah, it's actually, his original protest was in 2009. So it was 4 years for Heidecker to come out and tell them what they should be looking at interpretation, and I'm sure they've been bombarded since then with other decisions. I mean, I actually pulled a bunch that were other people who, you know, in the meantime, while Heidecker was in the process, who said, well, we have a residential, but we should be ag for these reasons, and went in for other reasons and said, so I'm sure, if I were them, with the constant having to then readjust all of what you've been thinking, and then they've got all their departments to try and get them to all do it all the same, I would have passed the buck too.
And it's so convoluted, and when you try to figure out
It
tax
is.
law, I mean, that's exactly why he said, you know, well, I'm not gonna give you legal advice.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he was trying to be helpful.
The only thing worse than Title 15 for tax is 13 for elections.
I'm well versed on that.
I hate 13.
And today's paper will give you a new eye opener. in Lewis and Clark County screwed up.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I read that.
The independent record? You're gonna have to go pull it, go read it. I don't know.
Um,
I just know that if you wanna call the Gallatin County Election Department starting at 6 a.m., I will answer the phone. So you say, hello, election department, may I help you? So, you know, call me, I need nice people to talk to. Mostly I get people who are upset for some reason or another.
And probably with the new precinct changes, I guess they've done this once already though.
They have.
Hopefully they've done it.
And they've consolidated more of them at our fairgrounds, which is really good for administration, but it's really confusing because you get in there and you have all the different districts set up. And we have some split districts and, you know, and so it's a madhouse of people, but it's good because we don't have them, you know. And we've had to, but I feel bad, we've shut down all the, like, we have West Ellis and stuff, but, you know, we used to have them at Sedan and Pass Creek and all the little ones, and it was actually like a social event, right? And Pass Creek could always close up, because, you know, when all 15 people had been in to vote, they knew they didn't stay open any longer, right? You know?
So they eliminated those.
All those, they moved them all into town, and at one point, it was interesting, because they took the people up Sipes Canyon, and they moved them into the Bridger Canyon District, which if you're looking at a map and you don't know about those big mountains, looks really smart. But you have to drive into town and then back out to go up Bridger Canyon, and people, bad, you know? So-
You know, I have to, in their defense, election judges are very hard to come by.
Yes, they are.
And
And it's a
so that-
long, hard day. People forget that. You
Yeah.
get, when you sign up to be the election judge, you were there, you know, to open the polls by 7, and you're there until you
Whenever.
close, and
You're
you know.
volunteering, right? Those are
No.
volunteer.
No, you get paid, but
You get
it's
paid,
minimum
not
wage.
wage.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's a long, and then, you know, we, from our standpoint, we drive, all the ballots have to drive down from West Yellowstone. So usually the deputy from Big Sky drives down to West, picks them up, and then drives them into town. And that's always, we always take the bet on the last precinct, but that's a long drive in the dark through the canyon to get those ballots
winter.
back, and then they get counted, so. It's fun, I like it, I love the process, I guarantee you, we're guaranteeing people's right to vote, so.
Tell Charlotte I said that.
I will. All right, well, nice to see you all.
Just out of curiosity, is Clarkston and Lombard still in that district? Do they vote out there,
Clarkston must vote in Manhattan. Because I don't know of any districts any further out, unless, yeah,
or
it's. they must-
Logan votes in Manhattan or Three Forks?
Oh, Three Forks, they vote in Three Forks. So, and they moved those used to be the school and now they're someplace else. That caused confusion too, but.
You know, Helmut, with the new building at the fairgrounds, moved a bunch of theirs there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, like I said, it's good for administration.
Makes sense.
You know, some of the old, I guess you would say, established precincts, that's a social thing.
It's exactly.
They bring pies and people come in and have coffee and pie and vote.
You see all your neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
it may be the one time a year you're actually all gonna be in the same place for the, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, I know. I know, well, my precinct used to be just like literally a block from my house. Maybe I vote absentee now, but
Well, I'm under the new program, and that's mail it to me, and I'll vote and mail it back to you.
I know.
I am too.
But you know what? I think it's gonna change the political advertising. I think people are missing the boat on the political advertising dollar. They are wasting money because they are advertising too close to the election. And they
People already
have
voted.
missed the majority of people who voted. I mean, I was listening, I'm driving up here with the radio and I'm listening to all these ads thinking, you guys are late.
Right?
I mean, I don't know who you're getting, cause you're not getting, I mean, I've already voted,
I voted.
yeah.
I think Secretary of State said for Broadwater and Lewis and Clark counties, probably Gallatin's the same, that 50% are in.
Are already in, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so,
They want their advertising out and done by the 1st of October, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so all this money, that's why I think it's all getting wasted, but. I don't know.
I'm not gonna say it.
I guess, you know, it fuels the economy, right? Advertising companies make it, televisions, newspapers, they all make money out of this.
I was just gonna say it's a waste of money to begin with.
So, it's good for the economy.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Susan.
it's nice to see you all.
We'll
Sorry
be
to be
adjourned.
late.
Hey, I have one question
oh,
for
we
you.
will be
No,
adjourned.
no, you
Oh, we are
don't have
adjourned.
to.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Who's on the tax appeal board?
Leonard Jeffries, Bill Hubbard, and Lori Bennis.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Do you know any of them?
No. That's gonna be a big job, I think.
Oh, it is. Lori used to be the secretary, and she was also is Gail's wife. And Bill has been on the tax appeal board for a decade.
Very, very long time.
Very long time. Leonard is new, but he served on the tax appeal board in Big Timber for many years. So he has experience just somewhere else.
So I knew you had a tax appeal board because I called the Department of Revenue today and they said, oh yeah, they have a tax appeal board. Good to know.
Yeah, is that when we got an email that said, by the way, here's your tax appeal board?
Maybe, because I called her and I just said I didn't know, and so I was like, and I was verifying with them all the things that I was like, okay, here's how I read all of these things, I wanna make sure that I'm not gonna say something that you don't agree with, and if you don't agree with, I need to know why, you know what I mean? Let's work through these issues before I get here,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, oh yeah, we went right down the list, okay, good. And she goes, yeah, they have one, oh, that's good, so. So, and you have a county attorney up for election, yes?
Yes, yeah,
And the one that's presently your county attorney is not running, correct?
correct. That's correct, yeah.
What are you laughing about? That's what you're laughing about.
We'll have a county attorney here in a few months.
You will have a new county attorney in January, right? No matter what? All right, well, call me if you need me.
All right.
Oh, we
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.